Internet! Hello, you lovelies! Let's talk all about The Wolfman in a non-spoiler review. As I'm posting this, the movie is not out yet, but I really enjoyed it. I thought it was an excellent way to kick off this insane 2025 movie season, and I wasn't as sold on the trailer, so I actually enjoyed it more than the trailer presented. I thought I wanted to get some thoughts out before the weekend. That way, if you were on the fence about seeing it, you might, if you agree with me, want to check it out. But before we get into the actual review, please hit that subscription bell. We are rapidly approaching 42K, and when we get to 50K, I'm going to do a 50 comic giveaway because this page is all about movies, TV, and comic books. I love the actual comics themselves, so if you're into the comic books, I'm going to be doing a giant giveaway for anyone that is subscribed to my page when we hit 50K. So please hit that if you love movies, if you love TV, if you love comic books, because there's a lot more to come. As I said at the top, this is an absolutely stacked year, but more importantly than even that, hitting the comment section with your thoughts. I want to know if you liked the trailers, if you were sold on this, if you were curious, if you were going to see it anyway. Please, let's have a conversation in the comments below, and also hit like while you're pressing buttons. Let's talk about The Wolfman. Now, this is a movie from Leigh Whannell, who I had known from The Invisible Man, who I knew from the so underappreciated Upgrade. He is a director who co-created Saw and actually also starred in Saw, and I've actually got a review in an interview up with him over at Real Rejects. It should be up by now, and if not, it should be up in the next day or so. But Leigh Whannell is a director that I've been very fascinated by. I think he does an incredible job with small budgets and making a world feel huge and lived in. I think he does an incredible job being inventive and playing with tropes, but also manipulating the way he sees the camera and the frame, and he's very good at building tension and tone and pacing. So he's someone that I actually would love to see handle a comic book property, because I find that translation from horror into comic book is very good. I think if he wants to, genre content and going that genre is absolutely his alley, and I'd love to see him handle something like Dead Man or a Zatanna or a Constantine, something in that world. I think he'd kill at. Clayface maybe, but I really think the way he handles extraordinary circumstances in an ordinary world is very uniquely strong. So, I mean, James Wan is someone he's worked with constantly. They came up together. They know each other very well. They're friends and co-filmmakers, hence the Saw stuff. But what we saw him do with genre content, what James Wan did with Aquaman, I think there's absolutely a potential here for what Leigh Whannell can do. And if you're following this page due to comic stuff, that's why I start with that. But his directing, I think, is so uniquely perfect for this world of horror. I think the universal monsters he's building out, I mean, he's already done Invisible Man, which I thought was genius. Aldous Hodge is so, he should be a household name already, but he is so good in that. And here, I did not know Christopher Abbott nearly as well as I knew Aldous Hodge's work. And here, Christopher Abbott is likewise giving that level of performance. The way Christopher Abbott is such an incredible father in this, such a doting dad and a husband, and someone that you see the pain and sadness in, and that evolves into you fearing for and with him. There is an internal POV to this Wolfman story. There is an attachment to the trauma of becoming the Wolfman that I think is really unique to this film. I love that Wolfman is so, long running, and there are so many versions of this that you need to make new decisions to make it feel unique. Wolfman came out in the 30s, and then we have like 7 of them now, and this is a unique perspective, even at a 7th installment in telling the same story. And I think that's largely rooted in Leigh Whannell's directing and POV and writing. He wrote it with his wife, and he wrote it coming from a pandemic mindset. He wrote it from an idea of isolation and how terrifying it is to feel alone, but also how terrifying it is to be trapped with one person or 2 people, and even people you love, that sense of claustrophobia and fear, and also the idea of, disease running rampant, and the idea of seeing your body falling apart, and the real life trauma of the horror all around you. And I think coming from the POV of, real disease and trauma and things that happen to us makes this, like I said, extraordinary in an ordinary world much more palatable. And I think coming from the POV, not like literally always, but sometimes, of the Wolfman is really unique in horror. Because I definitely felt afraid of the Wolfman. I felt afraid for the Wolfman. I connected to Christopher Abbott. I don't have any kids, but I want kids, so I connected to how he was raising his kids. There's a scene, it's not a spoiler, that takes place in New York on a city street, and dialogue shared there and emotional connection shared there is some of the best parent bonding, child, education, like the way they framed a moment of like raising a kid and some of the things said is so beautiful. And then it ties into the overall arc of the film in a really wonderful way. The little girl, her name escapes me, is also amazing, but I also do want to talk about the powerhouse that is Julia Garner. She is so tiny, but so big. She is so full of command while being so slight. And I think that's a really incredible dichotomy, that she can just say a few things and just own a room, and she can be, such a small framed human and just feel like she is in control. And here she's playing that to both sides. She's needing to be a good mother and needing to take control, but also she has to be afraid and in love, and also protecting, but also her protector is becoming a wolfman. It's a really incredible performance of a lot of multifaceted emotions. There's a lot going on at all times, and this movie is largely rooted in like 3 performances. So everyone has to be so incredibly strong. The world has to be strong. You have to be able to care about all of these things, because a big part of what this story is trauma and generational trauma, and what it is to pass things down, and what it is to be a family, and what it is to have expectations and to have, beliefs. And none of that works if you don't believe in them, if you don't care about their past, if you don't care about their lived in world, if you don't care about them as people, you don't care about their trauma. And here, you're so invested in them as a family. You're so invested in caring about them as individuals and as a family unit, that every single moment of horror is twice as horrific. Every transformation feels like it's affecting you. The movie also does a really incredible job using new imagery to the idea of Wolfman, to me anyway. Like there's this really cool hallucinogenic idea that really enhances the film for me. The idea of not being able to understand what's going on, that paranoid confusion and disillusionment really, really works here. I think that the intensity of it comes from that like paranoid, confuzzled way that you can be when augmented, and they use it here as a hyper negative, and that I think really was one of the most striking series of effects that really worked for me. And a lot of it apparently was in camera. Again, there's an interview over at Real Rejects where I had a conversation with Leigh about all that, and I also sat down with Christopher Abbott, and I think the conversation there, his ability as an actor to use all the tools at his command is so incredible. The darkness in his eyes that can feel loving or fearful or animalistic or hateful. There's so much going on behind that man's eyes that really sings in Wolfman. And those are all the positives. I usually front load positive because I think any art being made is a miracle. And I do think this is an incredible first movie of the year. I think this is an absolutely great way to kick off the 2025 season. That said, there are moments that I think pacing wise are off for the goal of the arc. Like there are set pieces that feel perfectly paced, but then there are moments within a set piece that are like, okay, we're spending a little bit more time here than I'd expect, and that makes it feel maybe like melodramatic. And then you add some music that also enhances the melodrama that throw you off a little bit, but it doesn't mess up enough to really knock that down. I think the use of stage lighting for intimate scenes and like very, very beautiful, very intimate close-up, and then the juxtaposition of that with full-on haunted house set pieces absolutely works better than I would have expected. But at the cost of that, there are moments that all of a sudden a music cue will be like, whoa, that felt a bit much. And there are definitely times where the transformation feels like it's hard to judge how mentally gone he is, and that's not on the actor, because I feel like he always knew where he was, but in the scope of the story, I feel like there is a bit of back and forth, which I think is natural and I think was the goal, but it does make it a little tricky to know how safe they are, which is a positive. It does cause tension, but as a moviegoer, it is tricky to be attached to certain moments of the film. I think the pacing and the melodramatic swells at times are my only 2 real negatives. I do think that it is a highlight of its genre. This is like a 3.75, between 3.5 and 4-star film for me, which is high. And I think a lot of that is in the emotion and the connectivity and all of those elements. And the only other negative I have is I love practical effects. I adore them. And I'm glad this did practical effects. I think it would have looked a lot worse with a heavy CGI film. But by the nature of Wolfman, it is easy to be a vampire and make that look good. We're very, similarly shaped. Like vampires change their teeth. They have humanoid features. They are often attractive. But even things like NOSFERATU or Lost Boys, like Lost Boys augments bridging and, makes that, very over-the-top gargoyle-y, but it's still our basic foundation. And NOSFERATU, even though it's over-the-top and big, it's still largely our foundation. A wolf could not look more different than us. So the middle ground between animal canine snout and all of the physical, the body, the four legs, the chest cavity, all of that couldn't be more different unless they were like a snake, but it's a very different physical shape. So physical effects on something that is, you're physically changing a human with just adding stuff is never going to be as seamless as, like, say, vampires or zombies or things that are already humanoid. So I do think that's hard. I do think they did the best they could with physical effects. To me, I think the Benicio del Toro wolf art, like the visual effects, is the strongest I've ever seen, but I think this movie overall is stronger. I like both those films quite a bit, but I think that one wins with how the wolf looks, but that wolf wouldn't work in this story. And this one, I think, is a better connectivity to these characters than that one, but I do think the way the wolves actually look. But again, that Wolfman, though my favorite design, doesn't work in the story. This wolf story works, but if you take these images out of context, it's just not as strong. And I do think that threw me a bit when the way the wolf looked, I had to adapt to. I had to adjust to. So those are my big flaws. Pacing, the bit of a melodrama, and then a visual. But like I said, the acting is incredible, directing incredible, world building is incredible. I love the writing. I love how much I connected to these characters. I love how lived in this world feels. I love what Leigh Whannell does. I really, selfishly, as a comic book movie fan, would love to see him adapt some comic book stuff so I could be as attached to the characters going into this as I am to his directing style. If you haven't seen Upgrade, absolutely check out Upgrade. It's the best Venom movie I think they've made. And I think this, if you love Universal horror monsters, you're going to love it. If you love horror movies, if you love this genre of supernatural, definitely check out Wolfman. I am getting to be more of a horror guy all the time. I think of myself as not loving horror movies, but last year, like, a bunch of horror and thriller films. I think of myself as a psychological thriller guy, like Fincher. I don't think of myself as a horror guy, but last year a number of thriller and horror films made my top of the year list. So I'm coming into the genre, and this one also brought me in even deeper. I really loved this kicking off the 2025 season. I hope you do as well. Let me know in the comments below if you're planning on checking it out. If there was anything in my review you found interesting, let's have a conversation about the Wolfman, and please hit that like so the algorithm likes this video, and hit that subscription bell. Let's get to 42K and then on to 50. Please join me for more movie stuff, TV stuff, and comic stuff right here. Subscribe, like, comment. Let's talk about it. Check out The Wolfman in theaters this Friday, January 17th. I had a great time. Hope you do too. Bye. Oh, and apologies for the sound. I haven't unpacked my microphones yet. I had to evacuate for the fires. So this is a little old school yelling at camera, but by the next video, hopefully, microphones are back. I just got to dig out a lot of stuff, but appreciate your patience as we rebuild. Much love.